is going to be called something like On the Topic of Sports Fandom, or something to that nature. And this feels like a very existential sort of topic, and I've been thinking very existentially about this the last few days. If you aren't too familiar with my channel, as you could probably already tell from the wall behind me, I'm quite a big fan of sports. It looks kind of unimpressive from this angle, though. I usually have the camera a little bit different, so it looks a little bit more filled out. It's definitely a perspective trick, you know. But I've been watching sports for a very long time, not my whole life. For many parts of my life, I wasn't really interested in sports, but and I have a video on this channel going over all the teams that I'm a fan of, but primarily the teams I'm a fan of in my life: the Portland Trail Blazers, the Seattle Seahawks, the Seattle Mariners, the Vegas Golden Knights, Bayern Munich. Those are kind of the big ones for me. Those are the ones I pay the most attention to. But lately, one of those names over the others has kind of felt different than the others. I've kind of felt my feelings towards them being very conflicted, which is very weird because I have very strongly held beliefs about being a loyal sports fan, being loyal to the team, the club, and sort of it being an extension of the city and your personal identity. Because the team is connected to a place. So for me, I grew up around the Portland, Oregon area. That's where I lived almost my entire life. So my sports fandom is connected to that region of America. When the teams win, the city is doing good, the area is doing good, the people there are doing good, right? I firmly do believe that, and I firmly believe in, and have always been a strong supporter of the idea that the name on the front is more important than the name on the back, right? I strongly, firmly believe that, and I talked about this a little bit in the Damian Lillard trade video. For not my entire life, but for so much of my life, the Trailblazers and Damian Lillard were synonymous. They were like that, unbreakable. But now he's no longer with the Blazers. And there were certain people that were a similar age, similar situation as me, that they felt that their fandom was being tested when Dame left, and they became either Milwaukee fans, or they're like, I'm just gonna watch Dame now, whatever. But I never had that moment. For me, I can't divorce myself from the Blazers. They represent the city that I love, even though I don't live there anymore. And thinking about it, I probably never will live in Portland again. My girlfriend and I have talked extensively. If we ever move back to the United States, we're probably going to move to Minnesota. If we ever, going back to Portland, outside of visiting, definitely visit there, but I'll probably never live there again, but I still love the city. Same with Seattle. Even there's a rivalry there, and in a sport where there's both a Portland team and a Seattle team, like MLS, I'll pick Portland. But I love Seattle because to me that entire region of the country, the Pacific Northwest, is very important to me. I hold that part of the country very dear. It's a part of my personal identity. Being from the Pacific Northwest is part of who I am as a person. And this is going to be very rambling and incoherent. I'm trying to assemble my thoughts in a way that makes sense. All those teams that I follow, even when they are struggling, I don't feel like the team or the organization does not care. To specifically talk about the Portland Trail Blazers example, because a lot of people have made this argument. A lot of people said, like, oh, they never tried to put a competitor around Dame. Hold on, my camera froze. a lot of people, like they never tried to put an actual competitive team around Damian Lillard, things like that, and I disagree with that. I think that they failed to put a competitive team around Damian Lillard, but I do think that they tried to. The Jeremy Grant trade. Before that, there was the trade for Norman Powell and Robert Covington. There's all these moves that they made over the years, and even though they didn't work out, I feel like they tried. I feel like the owner cares, especially Paul Allen. Paul Allen definitely, undeniably cared. I think Paul Allen was one of the best owners in sports, and it was very sad when he passed away. But even Jody Allen, as sort of hands-off as she's been, I feel like she does still care, and she allows the front office to have anonymity, and for them to care and for them to do their job. Even though the Trailblazers right now are in a down period, I feel like they are rebuilding in earnest, and I feel like they are putting in an honest effort to try to build a team that will in the future be able to compete. And I think that everybody in the organization is on that same page. So for me, even if they fall short, even if there are setbacks, I'm okay with it, because I feel like they're giving it an honest try. The Vegas Golden Knights, I feel like I don't even have to explain that one. The team constantly was trying to compete. They made moves, some that they were criticized for being too cutthroat, to try and put the best team on the ice and improve year over year over year. Even if you ship out fan favorites like Marc-Andre Fleury, Alex Tuck, you bring in a guy like Jack Eichel and he had surgery, they made these risky moves, and it resulted in them winning a cup. They put in an earnest effort, and they got it done. But even if they hadn't got it done, even if the Vegas Golden Knights fell short, I could not be mad at them because they tried. The same with the Seattle Seahawks. I feel like I don't even talk about Bayern Munich in this conversation. Even if they lose the Bundesliga this season, which it looks like they might do, they just lost to Bayer Leverkusen the other day by a pretty decent margin. I can't be mad at them. But something, and this is challenging my beliefs and my opinions. Something happened with the Mariners over this last week, and I feel like I can't feel that same way about the Seattle Mariners and their front office and their owners group. And I'm just gonna read, so right now there's a sticky post in the Mariners subreddit, talking about, it's called, Front Office Mayhem Trades and Rants Make a Thread. And, there's some things sticky there, and I'm just gonna read it. Mariners trade Kelnick, Jared Kelnick, Marco Gonzalez, and Evan White for Jackson Kowar and right-hand pitcher Cole Phillips. Outfielder Zach DeLoach will potentially earn a big league promotion to fill the hole from Kelnick. And then, this also, first of all, we have the Kelnick trade. Now, Jared Kelnick is a guy that the Mariners got from the Mets a few years ago in the Robinson Cano trade. He was super hyped up at the time. He was number one in the prospect pipeline at the time. And, in Seattle, he had very hot and cold moments this last season. He started off the season on a heater even when Julio was struggling. Then he cooled down during the regular season. Evan White's a guy that never worked out. Marco Gonzalez is a guy that he was looking good for a little bit, but he became too inconsistent. And, but we need to understand, sorry, it's all a jumble, but, Kelnick, he wasn't working out, but they basically got rid of him. They moved him to the Braves. They moved Marco and Evan White to the Braves, and it was all to save money, basically. And we have a lot of these stories coming out over this last week. Here's a picture from the subreddit. That's Jared Kelnick holding the Believe sign. Except, as you can see, instead, fans have edited the picture to say boycott. There are some fans who are trying to organize a boycott of the team. George Kirby, who is a pitcher in the Mariners organization, one of the very exciting young pitchers that the Mariners have in their pipeline. Here's a tweet that George Kirby liked. The tweet says, and I quote, "The one thing I love about this offseason is that Mariners fans as a collective are finally outraged at the obvious self-imposed restraints by ownership. It is so obvious and so clear what's going on that they can't be taken serious until there are steps taken," and then there's a ... show more thing. But that's a player in the organization liking a tweet calling out ownership for being cheap. Then here's after last offseason, so the Mariners had not made the playoffs for years and years and years and years and years. Finally, 2 seasons ago, the Mariners finally make the playoffs. Cal Raleigh, the amazing young catcher, he gets the hit, it goes, his big moment. The Mariners finally made the playoffs. They have Julio Rodriguez, one of the most exciting young players in baseball. We have very good pitching in Seattle, all this stuff. This last season, Texas Rangers spend huge in the offseason, while the Mariners sit on their hands and do nothing. They bring in Colton Wong, who was one of the worst players I've ever watched. They brought in Tommy La Stella to DH, and they just make these moves that are so cheap and baffling. You just made the playoffs for the first time in forever. The window is starting to open. Now is the time that you push your chips in. You have Julio Rodriguez on this long contract. As long as he's on the team, push the chips in, your window's open. But instead, they pinched pennies, and the Mariners missed the playoffs. And mind you, the Seattle Mariners are the only team in all of Major League Baseball who has never gone to a World Series. They've never even appeared in the World Series. The only team. And after last season, when the Mariners missed out on the playoffs, Cal Raleigh gave this interview, and he called out ownership. He called ownership cheap. He said they were more worried about saving money than winning games. And guess what? He was right. The team forced an apology, but he was right. He was right about it. Here's a great tweet. While Jerry DePoto mentioned payroll flexibility after the Jared Kelenic trade, Scott Service was more blunt. He did not want to see Jared Kelenic go, but spoke to the reasons for it. And what were those reasons? This is an interview with the Seattle Times. Well, I can't read it. It's payroll. Okay, so DePoto's initial offseason plan that featured a much higher payroll budget after a season where the team drew 2.7 million fans had to be amended. 3 out of the last 4 off seasons, Jerry DePoto has had the rug pulled out from underneath him by ownership, and this is the general manager, Jerry DePoto. Here's an article from USA Today. The Mariners were the most profitable team in MLB. They made $83 million in profit, while almost every other team lost money. The Mariners were the most profitable. But now the Mariners are trying to cheap out on players. This is going from the USA Today. And then this article came out. The Mariners now have roughly $20 million to spend to find suitable replacements for the 2024 lineup. Mind you, this is a lineup that just lost Eugenio Suarez, who, even though he was an amazing third baseman, was a pretty decent bat. Just lost Jared Kelnick. So you have to find a third baseman. You have to probably find a second baseman. I think you have to find at least one outfielder, if not two. And we have to get a DH. And the team has a budget of $20 million to do that. The ownership has given them $20 million. And I realize I kind of haven't mentioned this, so this whole thing stems from ownership. Primarily John Stanton, who's the majority owner of the Seattle Mariners, being extremely cheap, in viewing the Mariners more as a investment that they're just looking at the return on investment on, rather than a sports team that's meant to win games. So for me, as somebody who talks about the team on the front being more important than the name on the back, and somebody believes that, I believe in the idea of the team representing the city, the team representing the people. When that team is owned by people who do not care about, not only, they don't care about the team, they don't care about winning, they don't care about the fans. Because the fans want to win, the fans want to have a good time, but by not caring about winning, by not caring about trying to find success, they don't care about the fans, and they're telling the fans that because they're raising ticket prices. Root Sports, which is the regional sports network in the Pacific Northwest that has the Seattle Mariners, the Portland Trail Blazers, all those teams, is actually owned by the Seattle Mariners ownership group. They raised their prices. Again, this was the most profitable team in MLB. The most profitable team, according to Forbes and USA Today. And they're trying to cheap out, penny pinch, and suck the money out of the loyal fan base with multiple bobblehead nights, multiple retro nights, because that's the only thing the fans have to hold on to is the Griffey years, the Ichiro years. How many times are we going to hand out Ken Griffey Jr. bobbleheads? Every year they do it. How about you pay attention to the new Ken Griffey Jr. you have on the team, and you give him teammates to get him into the playoffs every single year? How about you do that instead of handing out Ichiro, Griffey, Buhner, bobbleheads every season? And be like, hey, do you guys remember the early 2000s, the last time that anybody cared about us? It's how do you, as fans, how are you supposed to care if all ownership cares about making money? $20 million. $20 million to fill at least 4 holes on the roster. $20 million. And the thing is, yeah, like, there's a whole team of billionaires. John Stanton's a billionaire. Like, he doesn't have the money in the first place. I'm just trying to find some more information about all this. And the worst part on top of this is there's this off-season statement from ownership talking about their goal for the team is to win 54% of games a season. They want to win 54% of games a season. And from a statistics standpoint, whatever, okay, I get that. Maybe that's enough to sneak into a wild card spot or something, like if you do the math. But if you are a fan of the team, you do not want the front office to be coming out and saying, we want to win 54% of games next year. If I'm a fan, I want you to tell me that you are trying to build a team to win 100% of games every year. That should be the goal, right? You're trying to build a team that's good enough to go to win every game, including the playoffs, the final, the World Series. That's what you're trying to build. Theoretically, on paper, right? You want to build the best team in the league, better than every single other team they go against. that's not realistic. That's what the goal needs to be. Here's a Fangraph blog. The Mariners' salary dump is petty and undignified. The Mariners are trading for worse players, all while trying to save money. Between this trade, referencing the Kelnick trade, the Suarez trade, and the Urias for Isaiah Campbell trade, the Mariners have gotten worse at 2 positions and saved $22 million in salary. Additional commitments in salary and buyouts to White and Suarez come to $12 million, all of which will be off the books by 2025. They could probably sign Shohei Ohtani, clone him, sign the clone to an identical contract, and not pay the competitive balance tax. This kind of salary dump is penny ante stuff. It is petty. It is undignified. As bleak as that is, I don't see an on-field justification for this move. These are moves you make when you are trying to win 49% of your games, not 54. And it's... And here's, while DePoto can't or won't speak to why the team's ownership gave a smaller budget than anticipated, the reason stems from uncertainties surrounding their regional sports network, Root Sports Northwest. So like I said, Root Sports Northwest, this is every Northwest sports team. I think they have like the Huskies on there. They have the Mariners, obviously, the Kraken, the Blazers, the Timbers, Sounders, all those teams under one subscription package that you got with Comcast. And that used to be a part of the Comcast just like package you could get. Everybody got it. But they upped the price by $20. You had to add an extra $20 in addition to your Comcast contract, which is already very expensive, to now get Root Sports. And Root Sports, which again this is just the Mariners ownership that owns the regional sports network. They're trying to say that Comcast blindsided them with this. Well, Comcast is saying Root Sports was the one who made the decision to raise their prices, thus kicking them out of the previous subscription tier. And honestly, for as terrible as Comcast is, I trust them more than the Seattle Mariners ownership group. So all this is to say, all of this that's happened, venting frustrations, but there's a point to this. This challenges my ideas and morals around sports fandom. Because in the midst of all this, Shohei Ohtani has signed to be a Los Angeles Dodger. A 10-year, $700 million contract. Now, no part of me ever thought the Seattle Mariners would land Shohei Ohtani. But the problem is our ownership did not even put in an offer. It came down to like the Blue Jays, the Padres, and the Dodgers, and up until there's a minute they were like it might be the Blue Jays that got him. I understand not spending $700 million on a player, but they didn't even offer $5. There were reports coming out that we were not even going to send an offer at all. I guarantee you pretty much every team threw at least an offer to Ohtani. Because you have to, right? He's the best player of all time, potentially. Not the Seattle Mariners, though. Not John Stanton, who said, "Do you have $20 million, Jerry DePoto, to fill 4 positions of need on this roster for a team that needs to make the playoffs, for a team that has a perennial MVP candidate in Julio Rodriguez, for a team that has some of the best pitching in the division, and for a team whose division rival just won the World Series, and whose other division rival has won like 3 of them in the last 5 to 10 years. That's what happened instead. So I've come to this sort of conclusion where I don't think until ownership changes hands, and I hope it does. I hope Seattle fans do exactly what Oakland fans did this last season. Stop going to games. If you do go to games, boycott. don't buy things at the team store. If you're gonna buy jerseys, buy them from China, whatever. To send a message to ownership, you want to make profits while not spending money, well, let's take the profits away. But unfortunately, the fan base is gonna keep going, because it's gonna be Felix bobblehead night, Ichiro jersey day, all this stuff, right? And they eat that up. The Seattle sports fans eat that up. And I can't do it anymore until John Stanton is not owning that team, until there's an owner. And there's a ton of rich people in Seattle. Bill Gates could own the team. I can't think of his name right now. The Amazon guy, Jeff Bezos, right? He could throw so much money around to the team and not even feel a dent in his pocket. But we have these other billionaires owning the team acting super miserly, unwilling to spend money. So I'm like, why am I even, I watched this franchise waste Ken Griffey Jr., waste Ichiro Suzuki, probably my favorite player of all time, Ichiro Suzuki. I watched the Mariners waste Felix Hernandez, right? I've never been a super hardcore Mariners fan. I've very casually followed the Mariners for a long time. It wasn't until recently that I really got into baseball, but I was always aware of the Mariners. And they wasted these players, right? Never gone to a World Series. The fact that they had the lineups they did, 2001, it's just a joke. And it all comes down to ownership. Ownership being cheap. Ownership being scared. Miserly. Penny pinching. So I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to support them as an organization. I decided, instead, I'm going to watch Shohei. I love watching him play. He was with the Angels, a guilty pleasure of mine because they were a division rival. Watching him there, cheering him on. I'll still watch for Julio because I love Julio. I have his jersey on the wall right there. Julio. I think he's one of the best young players in the game. But unfortunately, I can't support the organization level. So I'm going to watch fun teams, fun players who want to win, owners who care about winning. I'm not going to be a Dodgers fan, but you know what? As long as Shohei Ohtani's there, I hope they win games. I hope they win World Series. Because that's what he deserves. That's what baseball deserves. And I'm going to cheer him on while they do it. I'll probably get an Ohtani Dodgers jersey. I won't be a Dodgers fan, but until John Stanton sells the Mariners, I'm not going to be a Mariners fan either. I'll be a Julio Rodriguez fan. I'll be a Count Raleigh fan, but I'm not giving him any of my money for him to put it in his own bank account and not spend it on players on the field. Because what's the point? What's the point? So, I've come to this sort of idea of fandom, sports fandom, and, it's like I have this very through line of what that means to me, and this little wrinkles just come in and sort of changed up my whole perspective on things. So, I don't know. It's sort of a bit of a rant, a bit of a ramble. I hope you guys at least maybe can relate to it, empathize, commiserate with me, maybe. I don't know, but for the time being, that's where I'm at. I'm going to watch Shohei as a Dodger. I'm going to cheer him on as a Dodger. I'll get his jersey. Might get a hat. But I can't do it with the front office and ownership anymore, the franchise. It's abusive towards the fan base. It is. But that's the video. I do hope you guys found it interesting at the very least. If you did, please leave a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for more content just like this and leave a thumbs up. Maybe those ad dollars on this video will get a Shohei Ohtani jersey. Till next time, guys.